I'm not gonna lie, these ICE raids got me nervous because I'm an illegal immigrant by way of Bora Bora, Maldives, and Turks and Caicos.
Obviously, some ICE agents raided a business in our city without a warrant. They went in the back of the establishment. We believe that there were 3 people who they say were undocumented that they detained, but they also detained folks that were, in fact, citizens of this country. One person showed their military veteran identification and was still questioned anyway. People were fingerprinted. Pictures of their IDs and face were taken there. When I got this information, I was appalled, upset, angry that this would happen here in this state, in this country, that this would be allowed. Since we said something about it, I convened my folks. I said, we can't just let this happen and not say anything, that we at least have to say something. And so we did, and here we are. And as a result of that, I've got a series of phone calls and emails that were not too nice. One of them says, oh, you're not going to stand idly by. These are dangerous rapists and murderers that the liberals in this country have protected far too long. You want to defy the federal government? F around and find out what will happen, you little whatever. The problem with this is that none of these people were rapists or murderers or criminals. The problem with it is that ICE went in there without a warrant. And we can disagree on politics. You can disagree with me about the role immigrants play in the economy of our community. You can disagree with me about the fact that most immigrants are not criminals. In fact, they are victims of violence in cities. We can disagree about whether you support mass deportation or not. But what we must agree on is that the thing that separates this country from many other countries around the world is the Constitution of the United States. Now, we can't quibble about the 4th Amendment. We can't quibble about the 14th Amendment, that everybody has the right to due process, that we should be secure in our person, in our papers, in our property from undue search and seizure. Some smart men came up with this a long time ago, and now it's the constitutional laws that we live by, and nobody has the right to go around those laws, to disregard them. It's a slippery slope when we think it's okay to suspend the Constitution of the United States in order to make a political point or statement. That ICE response in their letter that they put out, they say, well, in a very cavalier way, these things happen. There will be some citizens who we're going to ask for their ID and their paperwork. There are going to be some citizens who we stop and question. So then my response to that is, how do you determine who's undocumented and who's a criminal just by looking at them? And if we allow people to identify us or put us in categories of criminal or any other thing just by the way we look, then we're going back to a time that was very dangerous in this country, specifically for people that looked like me. I got a letter that said we should arrest the store owner. An email, we should arrest the store owner. I mean, this kind of talk in America is not democracy. This is not the Constitution. This is not a nation of laws. And these are people who say they want to uphold the law, uphold the Constitution, that they love this country. Well, what do you love about this country? The right for us to be secure in our papers. The right for us to have the freedom to practice any religion we want. The right for us to speak, right? The right for us to assemble. The right for us to protest. The right for us to speak any language that we want. This is what we love about this country, that we're not persecuted because of our background. We're not persecuted because who we are. We're not persecuted because of what we believe or what we think. What we love about America is the Constitution, right? The Bill of Rights, the things that allow us to do what we're doing today. say that we want to protect folks in our community, our neighbors, and our family members, that we have a right to protect them, and we will protect them. And I don't care if you write 1,000 terrible emails or call me all day, every day. The fact of the matter is we believe in democracy in Newark, New Jersey, and we're going to stand on democracy here, and we're going to fight for all of our residents in this city, no matter what that looks like for us. So there's a whole host of people that is supposed to speak today.
Mayor, we need the Immigrant Trust Act. We can do that in Newark, but the rest of the state needs it. We need the Immigrant Trust Act.
Where's Governor Murphy?
Where is Governor Murphy?
We need the Immigrant Trust Act
Trust
now. It's the only thing that's going to protect our people from this happening further.
I appreciate the passion and the anger, and you should be passionate and angry. Let us get through this press conference and the steps that we need to take further. We will definitely convene and talk about what we need to do outside of us being in this room today. I'm looking for the run of show here. Okay, sorry. So first, remarks, New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, Executive Director Amy Torres. Thank you.
I don't know how many people in the room have had the privilege and the pain of having to speak right after Mayor Ras Baraka, but it's not very easy. My name is Amy Torres. I'm the Executive Director with New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. We are the state's largest immigration coalition. We are the state's largest immigration coalition in a state that has one of the largest immigrant populations in the country. If you are a member of the Alliance or you are affiliated with us some way, can I hear your voice right now? And it's because of the power and the strength of this coalition that folks were on the ground yesterday. I want to tell you a little bit about what happened. The Alliance works on policies that empower and protect immigrant communities. And when we're not fighting for additional protections to keep those communities safe, we are out in the community every single day, making sure that people are educated and empowered about the rights and protections that they do have. So imagine my surprise. Since the election, the Alliance's Know Your Rights work has gone into overdrive. Since January alone, we've provided almost 100 hours of Know Your Rights activities in Newark and across the state. Our online engagement for Know Your Rights materials is up over 170%. We have an entire storage closet of Know Your Rights cards that now sits empty. The demand has been there, and we knew that it was going to happen. This is one of those bitter, I told you so moments. Yesterday, you can imagine my surprise. I got a call from our Know Your Rights coordinator, Dante. I was not expecting to hear from him because I knew that he had a scheduled Know Your Rights training in Newark. Dante got a call from an organization that he had just trained and met with earlier this month, and an organizer said, I just got a call that there's an active worksite raid in Newark. We need all hands on deck. People don't know what to do, and they're scared. Immediately, we went into rapid response. That meant calling detention and deportation defense lawyers through AFSC to make sure we had an attorney on the ground. It meant notifying the ACLU to make sure that people's civil liberties were protected. And it meant bringing translated materials, interpreters on the ground to make sure that people knew what was going on and that they were safe. We dropped everything we were doing, and we happened to get there just as ICE officers were leaving. Imagine what it looks like to walk into a work site that has a customer-facing storefront, floor-to-ceiling materials, products, displays, no one in that storefront except a single cashier, no one stocking the shelves, not a single customer in the aisle, and attached to it a distribution facility in a warehouse, aisles further than you can see, and about 10 people within view. This is a work site that employs about 80 to 90 people per day. We got there, there were 12. By the time we left hours later, 3 people had come back, there were 15 people total. People are scared. We knew this was going to happen. And what we learned from folks that stayed behind was that ICE walked in like it was their empire's own conquered land. They were heavily armed. There was no prior announcement. They were blocking off entrances and exits. They were scrambling up delivery ramps. They were banging down bathroom doors to make sure no one was hiding inside. And most importantly, as the mayor said, they did all of this without being unable to produce a single name or a single warrant. As you've heard by now, there were arrests, there were interrogations. In ICE's words, this wasn't a raid. You can look at their public remarks. They called this a targeted operation. This type of sterile language suggests that there was some deep intel and prior investigation, that it was a really targeted approach. There wasn't supposed to be any collateral damage. If this is such a sterile and targeted operation, why was a U.S. citizen interrogated? Why was a military veteran's credential and honor called into question? I'll tell you how something like this happens. ICE lies. This is an agency that was created in a post-9/11 period of rampant nationalism. They use fear and racism to justify their presence, to justify their profiling, and to justify their power grabs. These officers came in with guns and started getting into people's faces. They were terrified, as you would be too. One thing that we must keep in mind, this week, more importantly than ever, this hell of a long week, we have heard on the campaign trail that we're only going after the bad folks. We're only going after the illegal ones. But what we need to remember is those pathways that used to exist for someone's great-grandma, someone's old uncle, those no longer exist. Those pathways are now illegal. In fact, pathways that were legal on Sunday, like asylum, the Refugee Resettlement Program, DACA, TPS, legal a few days ago, illegal today. And what the mayor is saying is exactly right. ICE has overreached beyond what should be constitutionally allowed, that is allowing them to profile our communities while also making everyone else guilty by association. If they can't deport and physically detain you, they want to detain you into the isolation of your own home so that you're disenrolling your kid from school. So that when you are sick or having a health emergency, you're too scared to go to the doctor. When your wages are being withheld from you, when your landlord is refusing to turn on the heat, you say nothing because, God forbid, that should put you on ICE's radar. In a lot of ways, we're lucky this happened in Newark. Our provider network is deeply resourced here. We have allies in local government. We have allies in the council, in the state legislature, and in our federal delegation here in Newark. That doesn't exist in other corners of the state. We don't know where else this is happening, but one thing that we do know is there's a bill in the legislature gathering dust that would provide the necessary protections so that folks don't feel detained in their own homes.
This is what it's come to. A U.S. citizen is being held in a detention center by ICE. Not a resident, not a green card holder, not even someone who had applied for citizenship and gotten it, like as a grown-up, which would be valid if he had. No, he was born here in the state of Georgia. And he was traveling to Tallahassee, and there's a law in the books, which is being challenged, by the way, in Florida, that says it's illegal for an undocumented person to enter the state. The car he was in was pulled over. He wasn't driving. He was the passenger. He was suspected of no crime other than being an undocumented person entering the state, and he was arrested for that. And then he had a court date where his mother showed up with his birth certificate, handed it to the judge. The judge confirmed this is an authentic birth certificate. This person is a U.S. citizen by birth, and my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do because he's on a federal ICE hold. His crime was being brown and having a Latino name. That's what he was guilty of. And he is still incarcerated right now as a U.S. fucking citizen. Hey, Miami Cubans that are all pro-Trump. This can be you. It happens this easy. People who aren't getting due process are being shipped to a prison in El Salvador. And now people who are U.S. citizens and are proving I'm a U.S. citizen are still being incarcerated. You need to be worried.
ICE had a raid yesterday in Massachusetts, and let me tell you, this was the fucking worst shit I've ever seen in my entire life. ICE comes to the front door of this Brazilian descent family of Brazilian descent. So they get there, and when they're asked, hey, where's your warrant? They refuse to acknowledge. They're just like, whatever, we need to go in. You know, doing their ICE shit. Apparently, things start getting out of whack because the neighbors come out and they form a ring around the ICE officer so they can't get out. So they're like, hey, let's call the police because we need, you know, there's some peace. There's ICE officers who don't have a warrant. Things are gonna get bad. Oh, they got worse than bad when the police got there. At some point, the girl I showed you guys in the video actually ends up running. They fucking tackled her. And she, they put her head to the ground. She's 16, by the way. They grabbed the little girl in the sweater vest. They end up detaining this 16-year-old girl, her mom, another relative, and their newborn baby. And because this girl was holding her newborn baby and was running away from the cops, and I guess she stepped in front of the cop car, they're charging her for child endangerment. What about ICE? They're protecting their names because you guys know how dangerous it would be for these agents if their names got out. But they also still haven't released what charges this family had as what reasons they needed to be deported.